A few months back, I warned against buying that super viral Casio Tiffany watch, or at least recommended caution. The reason? Well, despite being a Casio, that watch was made of low-end chromed brass rather than the industry standard stainless steel which many outlets were claiming, meaning it looked and felt pretty cheap in person with a questionable level of durability. Crucially, the turquoise version retailed for almost double the other models, with scalpers then buying them en masse and flipping them for nearly $500. All in all, it looked pretty cool, but had some significant drawbacks for those who care even an ounce about quality. If only it was steel and fairly priced. I wonder what it would... Now that looks more like it. In fact, it's sitting right there on the Moreland watch mat from our sponsor, Daily Watch. Since our last collaboration, several of the products we showcased have sold out, including my favourite slide case and their personalised triple watch roll. While you're waiting for them to return to stock, why not check out some of dailywatch.co's other curated products, such as their stylish watch mats, perfect for safely placing your watch on a bedside cabinet to prevent scratches. Or their unique selection of robot watch stands like Frank here, who not only looks cool, but has a cleverly designed slot system so you can just drop your watch in and out with ease. They even have larger trays available if you're after something to place your daily carry items onto. You'll see some of their other items in use throughout this video and get 15% off by using code BENZWatchClub at checkout, so go check them out in the video description. That's dailywatch.co, the same minds behind the world's largest wristwatch social media account. Okay, introducing the MTP-B145D. It's the latest Tiffany blue watch from Casio, and unlike the previous one, this one is actually made of stainless steel. Or at least it's supposed to be. I'll affiliate link it down below in case you're feeling nosy. While the last one was more of a Rolex Datejust clone, this one clearly takes inspiration from the much-loved Tissot PRX, with a similar case shape, handset and dial layout. Or so I thought. You see, when I checked to see if this really was a copy and paste job, I realised I may have been wrong. Indeed, the Casio webpage for this watch dates back to 2018, well preceding the release of this recent PRX. Now, I think what's probably happened here is that one or two versions of this model have actually been available for several years, and Casio just recently added some extra colours to jump on that Tiffany hype train. The Tissot PRX itself is actually based on a 70s model that easily predates this 2018 Casio, even with a similar hooded look design, but I will say the angular K-shape is quite different. So I'd say this Casio is more of a half copy overall. If anything, the MTP-B145 is most comparable to the smaller 35mm PRX models, as it's got an identical case width and a similar 40mm look-to-look. Perhaps the most notable visual difference is the thickness. This case is wafer thin, at only 7.5mm with virtually no taper, giving a pancake-like appearance that may be a hindrance if the watch were any larger. Thankfully, the compact sizing mostly prevents this issue, though a scaled-up future model would probably need some tweaks. For the most part, the case has quite soft corners and a particularly shiny finish that doesn't look like your average stainless steel watch. In fact, despite saying stainless steel on the snapback rear, it looks suspiciously like their silver resin watches, such as the A158 and A168 digitals. When I unboxed these watches on my unboxing channel In The Loop, I immediately suspected they were plastic or some sort of lower grade metal due to the extremely lightweight feel and the unusual surface temperature. For some reason, these steel cases are rarely cold to the touch. They're often warm, unlike the other 99% of steel watches I've tried to date. In contrast, the steel bracelets fitted to these watches are normally cold. I purchased these several months ago when some eBay watch dealer was the only place selling them, so I messaged them to confirm this case material. They said it was stainless steel. I then double checked with Casio Japan, who confirmed that it was steel in all sales regions. That should settle it, right? Well, to be honest, I wasn't totally convinced. Viewers on the unboxing video encouraged me to try using a magnet, and the behaviour I then observed was intriguing. You see, this mini magnet had no trouble sticking to the steel object around my house, and even attracted to the bracelet and case back of the B145. Those two parts of this watch should be steel, as they typically are on most Casio watches, even some of the really cheap ones. Yet the same magnet wouldn't adhere to the main body of the watch. It toppled off the upper portion every time, and when I tried to attach it to the flanks, it just snapped to the rear instead. At the end of the video, I'll be asking Casio some more questions and scratch testing this watch to see if they're actually trying to pull the wool over our eyes, or maybe if I've bought a fake. Either way, these are currently selling on the Casio UK website for about £65, or the equivalent of $82 US. And the fact that I'm even questioning the case material shows they're far from the most substantial feeling watches you can get for that price. That's even with inflation. It weighs just 67 grams, which can be partially attributed to the flimsy bracelet, which isn't far from that on their much cheaper digitals. This means the watch is pretty comfortable from a weight perspective, though your arm hairs might not feel quite so appreciative. It can be a plucker. Nevertheless, even at this elevated cost, most buyers still probably care more about aesthetics than quality. If the watch looks good, they can forego some cost-cutting construction. In a fashion watch role, I'd say the MTP-B145 does a commendable job. While quite small for most male wrists, it looks sporty and sleek, especially in the newer, brighter colours. One of the improvements here versus the previous Casio Tiffany, aside from the debatable case material, is the dial surface. Rather than the run-of-the-mill flat appearance of the last one, the B145 has a much more vibrant finish, with a reasonable sunburst effect that catches the light much more effectively. I got suckered in by the salmon pink one in particular, which I think looks even better with a cleaner, stronger sunburst. Though I must say that in person, this pink isn't nearly as saturated as in the edited stock images. I'm unsure if this subtler colouring is better or worse, so I'll let you be the judge on that one. Outside of the shiny colours, the rest of the dial is your typical clean, minimalist design with slim, loom-free hands and markers, combined with a very limited amount of text. While simplistic, I'd say it is still very attractive and well balanced, if not remarkable. Above the dial is a piece of bog standard mineral crystal, which provides some scratch resistance and at least doesn't induce any distracting reflections. The incredible thinness helps the B145 wear very flush to the wrist, so long sleeves aren't going to pose any challenge either. As you can guess, they've used a battery-powered movement to achieve this profile. Within is just a basic Miyota quartz like many other cheap modern Casios. One unit is aligned well with the second markers, the other not so much. Water resistance is fairly decent for a watch of this style at 50 meters, meaning that day-to-day aquatic encounters like washing the dishes won't be an issue. In watchmaking, 50 meters isn't technically as good as it sounds, but even then, short durations of submergence should be fine. While water isn't a major issue, getting the watch to fit comfortably might be more challenging. The bracelet has a push-button clasp featuring no micro-adjustment holes for fine tinkering. This means that when customizing the fit, you can only do so by extracting whole links at a time. Mercifully, those links themselves are small, but the range of adjustments still isn't as forgiving as other watches with a more traditional clasp system. Cost-cutting taken a little too far in my books. Visually at least, the bracelet suits the look quite well, with a reasonably executed brushed finish on top and a polished appearance on the sides, mirroring that of the case. I'd say the folded link construction is a tad better than on some of the dirt cheap digitals, but it maintains a jangly feeling nonetheless. Thankfully, you can switch this out for any other 18mm strap, unlike some alternative budget PRX clones. With this one, you get somewhat of an integrated bracelet look without the main downside of that. Of course, a much worse downside would be if this case material were being missold. Following my recent scratch test video, I emailed Casio a second time to see if it was perhaps a different grade of steel. Casio Japan replied with an interesting revelation. The representative informed me that the case, rear and bracelet were all made of SUS 304, which according to Google is the Japanese designation for Type 304 steel. Opportunely, the Vostok we scratched in our test video was made of that same grade of steel, making for a perfect comparison. When side by side, the appearance and tone are very similar, and they even share a comparable glossy finish with notably soft edges and corners. I won't be testing the Vostok case with the magnet because it's currently up for auction. I don't want to risk magnetizing the movement for the new owner. That said, the excess bracelet links of the Vostok are much more attracted to the magnet than the Casio case was, for whatever weight that holds. As a quick reminder, the 304 steel Vostok started scratching lightly at level 5, with more noticeable grooves at level 6, mostly the same as the industry standard 316L steel. So, how does this Casio compare? Well, I'm pleased to tell you that despite the misleading first impression and the atypical case characteristics, it is most likely made of 304 steel. It showed no marks at level 4, then scratched lightly at level 5, with deeper grooves at level 6, just like the Vostok. While it's not the standard steel used in watches, it is adequate for a budget watch, and it's still better than the chromed brass used in that previous Tiffany one. This doesn't explain why the magnetism was so inconsistent across different parts of the watch, nor why it felt warmer than expected, though I imagine it's something to do with either the manufacturing techniques, the finishing, or maybe the thickness of the metal. I wonder if the imprecise edges present on both watches are more down to cost-saving measures than the use of 304 steel? I'd love to hear from you metal nerds in the comments. So I was kind of onto something. The case material, it wasn't the normal 316L steel, but I'm glad that my initial assessment was still proven wrong. This watch should still survive relatively well. At its current UK retail price, you can purchase many better made watches from Casio or other lesser known brands. Despite this, there's very little integrated or faux integrated sports watch competition in this segment, meaning Casio can pretty much ask what they want for this watch. Most of the Chinese PRX clones on AliExpress are either rubbish quality or start at about £80, not including shipping or additional taxes. Most micro brands, meanwhile, seem stuck to the playbook of a super high finish watch with a Seiko NH35 or Miyota automatic inside for a minimum price of like 200 quid. I'd love to see more challenges in this lower end space, because as good looking as this watch is, I think it can be beaten. For looks, I'm giving the B145 a 7.9, and for value, I'm giving it a 7.4, solely because you'll struggle to find other watches of this style and price that look so sleek. It's affiliate linked in the video description if you're interested, and check out this video next, which is about Casio's most underrated gem. It's a watch you've probably never heard of. Go on, take a look.